So these are some things that have changed in the 2015 building code. It's a long list. I'm going to go really quick. I don't have all of them in there, just some key ones that I think are valuable to it. I can't give you the book itself because it's a copywritten book, but every year, every 3 years, the ICC gives you these, and they're very valuable for what has changed out there. So some of the changes that have gone in there. A quick one is they look at the change of use occupancy. They note that a change of use might not particularly be a change of use. It might not change the use group, but it could change the application of the use there. They're kind of referencing that we have the ability to look at it, even if it's a restaurant going to be a restaurant, or if it doesn't change out of a restaurant code, but it's a slightly different use. Maybe it was a restaurant, now it's going to be a bar. That's a change of use within the occupancy classification, and allows us to kind of look into what's happening with that. Next one. I think if you hit the down arrow, I think they'll just go to the next tab. Horizontal exit was one that changed this year. They clarified horizontal exit. For in the past, it's been considered a path. They clarified it in here that it's not really a path as much as it is a portal. A horizontal exit is a single plane, basically, where you have a building separation or you have fire separation. And the text of how you achieve a horizontal exit didn't really change in Chapter 10, but the definition changed to say it's a point, it's a door, basically. It's not a path to nothing, it's a door there. So it kind of clarifies how that works. The next one. Food processing establishments. For food processing establishments, if you're not actually connected to a restaurant, maybe it's a commissary for a food truck or something like that, where you're not actually serving the food out of there, you're preparing the food there, you can classify as a B occupancy instead of an A occupancy for it. Training and skill development uses classified as a B occupancy. You can read more on that in the book, but it is what it is. Storage rooms less than 100 square feet, there always was something there, and accessory uses there on separating them or fire protecting them. But under the 15, you can consider it part of the use, accessory to that. It doesn't have to be separated or sprinklered for it. Stage prosceniums and some stuff with that. It's kind of unique, but I got to skip through them quickly because we don't have a lot of time for that. Chapter 5. Chapter 5, the tables revision, regulating building height and areas. Basically, I don't read this. The provisions regulating building height and area limitations have been extensively revised with no change in technical application in order to provide an increased decree for user friendliness and technical consistency. Somebody couldn't do math, and so they decided it all had to be in a table rather than having a concise formula for how you get to building height and area. The formula still works, but the tables, if you want to click on the, go back up to the previous comment there, and just click on the white space and then hit the next page, the arrow over. It should get to the actual table. Do one more. Again. Sorry, I'm trying to work this. So yeah, this is the building height table here. Whoa, it's all right. Just go up arrow, I think. Oh, now I gotta go back down arrow. Yep. So they have a specific table now for building heights above grade, which just limits just the building heights. They have a specific table for number of stories above grade, which tells you the number of stories. Used to be in the top 2 lines of the table, the consolidated table. You're gonna keep going down, and next page to the next table. Find the next table in here. The building. Oh yeah, it's after mezzanines. Sorry, it is after mezzanines. They stuck that in the middle. We can come back to mezzanines. Keep going page down until you find the next table. We'll come back to that later. So here's the table for Chapter 5. The one thing to notice in the notations of footnotes, it says NS, S1, SM. NS is non-sprinkled, kind of what you're used to seeing there. That's the information that always was there. S1 is sprinkled single story, the old 300% area increase. SM is the multi-story increase, 200% increase. That's what it is. It used to be in one nice table. It's now in 3. It used to take 2 pages, and now it takes 5. That's what it is. Mezzanines, I'll flash back to that one. That was simply that having the protected means of egress from a mezzanine as a second means of egress isn't required. As long as you have 2 exit accesses from the mezzanine, you don't need the protected second exit from the mezzanine. That's the table. Podium structures. Podium structures is a unique one there if you work with those. You used to be able to construct a podium of an I1 of a 1A construction below any type use, and it would give you an increase for the height. Podium, and your podium was limited to 1 story. Your podium is no longer limited. Your podium can be as many stories as it wants to be in there. Basically, it says you are limited to the most restrictive height and floors per the most restrictive building type. So if you got a type 5B above a 1A construction, 5B is going to limit your height and stories, and your podium can be anywhere within, rather than anywhere within that number of stories. You could be the second to the top story, but you can't get a building taller than what the maximum height is. I think one of the way it works out, it gets you an extra story because you can squeeze an extra story into the maximum height, but it doesn't. Basically, it used to limit your 1A construction to 1 story. And said, why are we limiting 1A construction? That's the most safe construction there. And so they did away with the limit for the 1A construction. So the next one. There's an old footnote regarding a substitution of 1-hour construction or substituting sprinkler systems for 1-hour construction in table 601. It was gone because nobody used it because it didn't make any sense. Minimum separation for lot lines for projections is a little bit more restrictive. Take a quick look at that if it's something that you use quite a bit. You can't get as close to the lot line with your eave overhangs as you used to be able to, or anything that projects from the building. Openings through adjacent walls of a S2 parking garage. This is an interesting one. When you regulate the construction as 2 separate buildings, the code says you can't have openings within those, unprotected openings within those. It made a nod to, yeah, but in the case where you got a parking garage next to residential use, it doesn't make sense to have opening protections in the parking garage. So your residential use needs to have the opening protections, it does, but your parking garage doesn't need to have the opening protections in 2 separate buildings for that. I know this is a lot of stuff really fast. I mean, if you guys have any questions as I roll through these, I'm happy to take them, but again, for a number of stuff that's in there, to glance on them, I gotta go quick. So, this was interior structural elements, floor and roof elements. They really clarified exterior walls and firewalls on those. The limits of structural stability, how it was defined, and there was a bit restrictive in that. Both exterior walls and firewalls basically are saying the building can fall away as long as a firewall stands. Building on one side can for firewalls, a building on one side or the other can fall away as long as a firewall stands. In the exterior walls, you used to be able to protect all of your primary structure coming back that's supporting the exterior wall. It's not required in the 15. So it's kind of technical in how it gets there, but the blanket requirement that your exterior wall, the bracing has to be fire protected, isn't there anymore. The exterior wall has its rating and stands on its own, regardless of how the actual structure braces back throughout the building to provide us rigidity. That's a technical one. So, yeah, this is firewall design. NFPA 221, which is firewalls and high challenge firewalls. It's a pretty interesting read. If you're needing firewalls for your construction there, it gives you some pretty good options on how to create firewalls. This basically used to say have sufficient structural stability under fire conditions. It says basically designed or constructed that the structure on either side could collapse without the collapse of the wall. So when you talk about having connections to structure on either side that would fail to allow the building to fall away while the wall remains with the adjacent building, and you decide the zinc tabs that you would use that would allow the wall to be laterally braced by either building, but only needs one building to actually support it. Those type of things are more applicable now for how those firewalls are built. Double top plates, this was one that was in the code, it was kind of hidden there. They clarified it a bit there. Your membrane for your fire rated floor assemblies can be interrupted by double top plates in a type 5 construction. So long as you have a type X drywall on both sides of that interrupting wall, then it interrupts the horizontal membrane. Assembly uses on roofs. If you have an assembly use on a roof, there wasn't any code language on sprinkling that before. They're now saying if you have that, you have to sprinkler all of the floors below that roof now, if you have an assembly area on the roof. Wanted to take a look at. This is an interesting one. Specific in Group A uses, assembly uses, there was code language under Chapter 9 that allowed you to look at the occupant load of the area of the room and decide then if you need fire protection or not for that room, not necessarily for the building. Assembly was an interesting one that you could have limited sprinkler areas for that. The code is now saying that if you have multiple assembly use spaces, you have to add up and they share an exit, you have to add up the occupancy for all those assembly spaces to determine if it meets the requirements for requiring sprinklers in the area. Steve's looking at me like.
Yeah, I thought that was different, but seems like it was part of the whole building originally.
Well, we dealt with that at Blandford Nature Center. We dealt with that, and they had that assembly area outside of the business area. The next one. This is an interesting one for you that follow NFPA 13. The NFPA 13 regulates the design of sprinklers. The NFPA 13 removed a allowance that said small bathrooms less than 55 square feet don't require a sprinkler head in them in the latest revision of that. So IBC put it back in. IBC put it back into this, which since the NFPA 13 is referenced by the IBC, you start here and then go to NFPA 13. And since this says you don't need it, you can skip it. This is one I brought in. It's not really a big change in the code, carbon monoxide alarms. The reason I bring this one up is there's currently legislation within the Michigan legislative branch that is trying to modify carbon monoxide detectors within the Public Act 230. If you remember from way back when, Public Act 230 is the document that gives us the authority as building officials, and it institutes the model codes and what Michigan codifies as the Michigan building codes. But the act itself doesn't hold, these are considered the rules for that. It doesn't hold the rules, it holds legislative acts within it. And so there's current legislation that's going to address carbon monoxide detectors within the legislative act, which confuses stuff because they're already addressed within the rule, which is the code book. And so now we've got two places to look. We've got to look at the Public Act 230 and see, does that say anything specific about building elements, carbon monoxide detectors in this case? And then look at the rules for the Michigan Building Code and say, what does that say about carbon monoxide detectors? That's just something to put out there in there.
Is it not
In Michigan, because it's in the Act would supersede, because the Act has the same way that the last thing in NFPA 13, since it's referenced by the initial document, that initial document is what holds authority over the underlying documents. So if there's a confliction between Public Act 230 and the Michigan Building Code, Public Act 230, the Michigan legislator holds sway.
Tommy Brand is actually the author.
He's not the author. He's a co-sponsor.
Co-sponsor. I think this came about maybe a year ago. There was a pool incident where some kids were hurt at a pool at a hotel, and there was maybe the pool heater was causing the carbon monoxide, and there was no carbon monoxide. So it's in the code, but we want to look at.
The next slide. Chapter 10. Chapter 10, you won't find a table for common path of egress travel. They kind of relooked at how Chapter 10 was arranged. It actually flows pretty well now from, I believe, from least restrictive to most restrictive when they talk about the types of exit access. Exiting is that's a topic for a whole another conversation, because I can spend the whole time there talking about exiting. More specifically, they looked at spaces that allow one exit. Rather than referring to common path of egress travel, they looked at rooms, spaces, or areas that have one exit. And so it entails kind of the same intent, that I've got to be able to get to a point where I can choose two ways out within a certain distance. If you can hit on the page side, scroll down to the table. I think it's the next page. Hit the arrow down, maybe. There we go. Yeah. Further down on this page, maybe? No, it's cumulative option loads. I think one more down. But anyways, it really clears up a lot of stuff in there. One of the things that they talk about, I'm going to miss it. I don't know where it is there. One of the things they talk about is separation of common paths of egress. The table is 1006.21, spaces with one exit or exit access doorway. In there it says maximum common path of egress travel distance, but it's referenced under spaces with one exit. So it's still there. They talk a lot about in the current Chapter 10 exit access. Exit access is how you get to a portion of your exit travel. Your exit consists of exit access, exit, and exit discharge. Exit access is until I get to a point where I reach a level of protection, rated exit corridor, rated exit stair, a horizontal exit. Until I reach a level of protection, I'm in an exit access, and that measurement stops at the door that it's an exit. From the door that's an exit, I may have a distance to go till I get to an exit discharge. Exit discharge is where I leave the building and I enter public way. Horizontal exit, the exit discharge and the exit are the same thing. A lot of places, the exit discharge and the exit are the same thing. But where I have a protected path, be it an exit stair, not exit access stair, but exit stair, I enter a protected stairway. I've exited, but I haven't hit the discharge yet. I got to go down the stairs till I hit the exit discharge, which is a door to the outside wall. And so they really clarify the exit access travel distance in there. So much so that if you look at second stories, exit access travel distance on second stories was rearranged, and it provides a lot of clarity on it's a space with one exit or one exit access. I can go down one set of stairs, but at the bottom of that stairs, I now have a choice of 2 exits. I mean, common path of egress travel distance. And so my space with 1 exit is to the bottom of the stairs, but now I can say, okay, well, now I'm traveling in an exit to the outside of the building there. So there's a little bit more freedom in how you plan some of those exit access paths there. Yeah, that was a new table. Nice job. Remoteness of exit access stairways or ramps. This one's interesting because they open up the ability for 2 exit access stairways rather than requiring 1 exit and 1 exit access stairway. They open up the possibility that you could have 2 exit access stairways. If you scroll to the picture that went with this, I think it's on the, I don't know. There's a picture that goes with it, and they say you have to be careful when you do that, that your paths don't reconnect. I could have 2 stairways on either side of the building, but I have to be careful that those paths don't come back close to each other and then redistance. It's kind of the same adage of having the exit distance between on a floor, that I got to measure the total distance across the floor and then take a third of that my exits have to be separate from. The same thing exists now with the exit access, is that I can't have those 2 exit access paths come back to a close point before they go. I think they have to be a third of the distance apart from each other. The required separation distance shall be maintained for all portions of such exit access stairways or ramps. So as I'm in that exit route, until I hit an exit, I have to make sure that those routes stay separate for that. I'll hit the next one. Ladders. We can use ladders, yay. Mechanical code always referenced them, that you could use it for access to mechanical spaces, but there was nothing in the building code. So I got a section in the building code now. Required widths of aisles in group B is now regulated the same way that corridors are regulated. So you can't have narrow aisles that aren't a corridor. You got to meet, I think it's just the 36 inches. But you can't have just skinny aisles between stuff, between cubicles and between merchandise racks, something like that. You used to require a door between your exit stair and exit passageway. I said that doesn't make sense. So from your exit stair to your exit passageway, which have the same rating, there's not a door required at the level of exit discharge. Vapor retarder, this is an odd one. Skip past that one. If you want more information, you can see me. Yeah, it highlighted twice. You got to go to the highlight 3 times. I know, I really highlighted that one. Glazing by stairs has a slight modification that you have to, within 5 foot of the bottom of the stair, kind of regardless. It used to have a more stringent saying you don't have to do it there, but 5 foot within the bottom of the stair, you've got to have safety glazing. Here we go. Try that one. This was an interesting one. Limited quick service tenant spaces are no longer required to provide toilet facilities for public customers. And so the item 2 under the exceptions is the new thing. Structures and tenant spaces intended for quick transactions, including takeout, pickup, or drop-off, having a public access area less than equal to 300 square feet. So a Chinese food restaurant, one of the things that brought this up to me was Papa Murphy's, where you stop in, you pick up your pizza and you leave with it. I can remember in reviews past saying, well, yeah, your restroom though has to open to that waiting area. Well, necessarily they're saying if it's less than 300 square feet, it's intended for quick take up and pick up and drop off. The commentary gets really specific on that. It's kind of general here. The commentary gets really specific as, talking about dry cleaners, quick service food restaurants, those type of things where the intent is I'm in, I take it, I leave. And the commentary speaks to if there's seats, it's probably, if there's chairs there, it's probably not intended for quick service pickup.